Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 1:30 and the Pelican Bay Services Division Board meeting is now called to order. Just one housekeeping mention. We will be adhering to regular order with 3-minute comments from the audience prior to the agenda and also after any agenda item. So with that, let's all rise and say our Pledge of Allegiance.
You want that mic on so that then when anyone speaks, they can be heard. It's on, right? It's on. This mic is red. The mic that's lying on top of the speaker is red, so if you want it to pick up that sound, you need to be green. That's all. Yeah, that's all right. I could have done it, I was just checking.
Well, as you all know, I'm not our regular chairman, Michael Fogg. I'm the vice chairman, and Mike's away having a good time somewhere, I hope. Before we proceed with the quorum, I'd like to make a motion, and this is wording from the county attorney's office. I'd like to make a motion to allow Bob Lufkin and Brad Hildebrandt to appear by phone due to extraordinary circumstances. And I'll need a second for that motion.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So gentlemen, you're on and you can participate.
Thank you.
And Barbara, we do have a quorum now, of course. Item 3 on your agenda, is to approve the agenda, but I'd like to make a motion that we allow Rick Swider, our board member, who is a member of the Pelican Bay Foundation's Resiliency Committee, to make a report. And I would like to put it under old business, item 11. Do I have a second for that motion? Yes. Item 11. We can. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Now, I need a motion from the board to accept today's modified agenda.
Second.
Any discussion concerning the agenda as modified? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Aye.
Passes unanimously. I'd like a motion now to approve the April 9th, 2025 minutes of the board meeting. Second? Any discussion about those minutes? All those in favor of approving the April 9th minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. The minutes are approved unanimously. Item number 5 is the approval of the May 14th, 2025 minutes of the board. I need a motion for that, please. And there's a second. Any discussion about those minutes before we vote? All those in favor of approving the May 14th minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes stand approved as presented. Item 6 now is our audience comments, and as I said, please state your name clearly and where you reside for the record, because these are all transcribed and we need to know who's speaking. And 3 minutes is the rule. Let's turn it over to the audience and see if anyone has a comment on anything except an agenda item, because if it's an agenda item, you'll get a chance to weigh in. No, no audience comments? That brings us to item 7, which is our administrator's report, and our administrator, Neil Durrell, turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. On our project summary, that is item 7 today, beginning with the operations building. The building actually is beginning to draw to a conclusion. We expect to get a certificate of occupancy, barring some problem with the fire department and the low voltage fire alarm and other systems that are there, before the end of the summer. So I think before we get to the end of the year, at least that's the current projection. The site work, the grading is essentially complete, and I understand they'll be in there to install the base material, and the paving will be the next phase there. The building interior, I was in it the other day, is essentially complete at this time in terms of the finishes. The walls are painted, floors in, air conditioning system is all in. They were working on some of the 2 outbuildings that are there. I did not check, we have a new fuel system. Has it been delivered? Is it a long lead term item?
No, that's gonna be a separate item. We didn't purchase that through this vendor.
Okay. That's probably why I didn't see it. But there will be a new system. The system that we have has served us well, but we need something a little more permanent in that regard. Sidewalk improvements. Our contractor returned to the site just prior to Memorial Day. He has completed both of the 2 outstanding task orders to construct some D-curb adjacent to landscape berms at both the Crescent and also Ridgewood. That work is finished. He has flagged and was in the process of removing sections of the sidewalk that do not meet the specification in advance of final inspections by the county's right-of-way permitting section within the Growth Management Department. Do we have a date for that, Aaron or Lisa?
We start inspections the week of June 23rd.
23rd of June. So we will be doing the punch-out work in advance of that, and so that job will also hopefully be fully concluded or resolved by the time we get to the end of the summer, at which point the 1-year warranty period will begin, and then there will be a final acceptance of those facilities at the conclusion of the 1-year warranty period. The next one, I think, on the index, the sand reclamation project. Our request of DEP to do the next phase of the reclamation project was denied. The governor's executive order from last fall had a special condition that was attached to it that work could not affect protected species, and so the DEP staff have relied on that to deny our request to continue to reclaim that sand that is inland and within the mangrove area until we get to the end of nesting season. Our consultants have advised me that by the time you get to the end of August, all nests would have been laid by that time, and then you're just waiting for the nests to hatch between there and October. So my inclination is to make a revised request under the sort of the private property protection aspect that we're seeking, and ask them to reconsider our request when we get to the end of August. It would be much easier at that point to know where the active nests are and to protect them from the placement of that sand material and the final grading and whatnot. And so That's something I'll update you on when we get probably to the August meeting to see if we're going to be successful with that. We did, and I'll take questions, we did receive one of two expected bids for that work and the associated work that will also be done at the end of the turtle nesting season to dredge Clam Pass. And Lisa, that was just received, it was $315,000. Really a pretty good price for an estimated 12,000 cubic yards of material. And so that work is on schedule for that contract to be let and awarded. Did we get a no bid, or are we still awaiting a bid on the second one? Just, okay, so the other one's a no bid? Okay.
Neil, is that backhoe or dredge?
It would be mechanically dredged with some sort of track hoe or backhoe. All three sections, though, that, you know, will pose. That doesn't preclude them from using a mini dredge, a hydraulic mini dredge. But I think that what they'll do is they'll try and do that on some type of barge. They'll put the equipment on a barge in order to get to the east end of Section C. It does include 2 areas of overwash. You may recall that during Hurricane Ian, at the south end of the park, the storm surge completely overwashed the peninsula at that point and deposited a new spit of sand into the bay. And we intend to have that removed at that location. And there's one other minor area on the north end, I think in Bay Colony, where we'll be doing some work to also remove those hurricane shoals within those 2 sections at the same time. Question on that?
And then just a question on the sand recovery. Is there a 2-phase approach where you could recover it but still pile the sand, say, behind the buildings or behind the berm, and then once the nesting is done or known, then place it on the beach, so it'll be a faster process? I don't know whether that's more costly or anything, but and I don't know if turtles lie behind it. Because it was not.
I think we could ask. I can tell you that earthwork companies like to minimize the number of times they touch the material.
Right, which makes
So
sense.
to have him reclaim it within the area that was inundated in the mangrove forest, only to move it, say, to the east side of the 2 amenities, to come back at another date and pick it up and move it again and then bring it.
Yeah.
Very expensive, and my inclination is the fewer times they have to touch it, the better the price. It's a logistics issue.
Yeah, we've had a few sea turtles that have made it all the way into there, so
Oh,
they're
really?
pretty deep in.
So the fact that it's there is
We couldn't
encouraging.
even extract from that area.
Okay, all right, understood. Thank you.
You anticipated answered my question, because I don't recall the sea turtles getting very far back there. And
There's a few that have gotten pretty deep into.
little,
I guess the sand covers it.
They're keeping away from them king tides. They want to make sure their nest is way, way in.
so if we make a successful request for reconsideration, do you think this work can get done beginning in August?
I think we can send the request in, and then we would probably start early October. Like, we would try to conduct the work at the tail end of sea turtle season. But it's gonna have to be coordination with the sea turtle people as well, because they have to say, yes, this nest is hatched, or this nest has already been, moved on. So it'd be a lot of coordination, but we'll still send the request.
Some of that is also dependent on tropical storm or hurricane activity. My understanding is the eggs are gas permeable, and that when inundated with salt water, that they drown. And that's what kills the eggs, even if the nest is not, unearthed. And so some of the nesting activity will also be dependent on what, if any, storm surge is part of the current tropical storm season.
Could you elaborate on was it a plan that you submitted that was denied? Is that what, could you tell me exactly what that?
Yeah, we had a
means?
contract price for the sand reclamation with a company called Earth Tech Enterprises.
No, the denial of your plan.
Yeah,
And then that.
It was laid out in a letter. We made a formal request through our consultants of DEP and they responded in a 2 or 3 page letter. Is that part of the background?
When, when
Yeah.
did you, when was that letter drafted and submitted, and then they had a response?
I
thought
believe
a
it was
formal
drafted,
plan.
I believe it was drafted after Easter or sometime in and around Easter. I don't know. I'd have to find out.
Well, I'm just recalling from the board meeting when Chad was speaking, and he had said that we didn't have a proposal sent in. Maybe I'm confused. And then he said there was no request for proposal for a contractor at that time, and that was just a few weeks ago. So I'm confused about what we're talking about.
We've had a price for the sand reclamation for some time. We have just received the bids for the mechanical dredging of Clam Pass under a separate agreement. In this case, it's the same company, but 2 different bids, 2 different contracts.
So is that something you bring to the board and show us all the bids? Do you bring those to us?
You ever get one? I'd be happy to share with you the invitation to bid that was let, and if you want to see it, also the formal request that was made of DEP for the exclusion.
I was just liking to see who all bid it, who bid the job, you know, and how you decided.
I think we submitted it to those companies who have annual contracts, and whether or not how many are on that list, but all that's a matter of public record. I'd be happy to share that.
Thank you.
I think that that's all that I had today.
Neil,
Or project related.
I went to see your building yesterday. It really looks nice.
I think so.
When do you think we'll move in?
I always like to over deliver and under promise. The staff told me that we expect the CO by the end of September. If we can beat that, then that would be good news. But I will tell you that I have been to the woodshed of the local fire department's final inspection before, and I've had COs only to have FPL then come out and say, you know what, that transformer's over 20 years old, we're gonna replace that. And then that delays it another 6 weeks, and so I am hopeful that when we get to September, that we'll have a little dedication ceremony. Your employees have been working under third world conditions for some time out of shipping containers and a very small single wide construction field office, and so we're anxious to get them in there.
It's a double wide.
Is it a double wide?
Read the financials too?
Yes, sir. That was the next thing that I have. So these are the 8-month financials as we approach the end of the 3rd quarter. So these are as of May, the end of May. You'll see on the balance sheet that there is a combined $10.9 million in cash. About 95% of that is in your general fund and in your debt service fund in terms of the total cash that is there. On the liability portion of the balance sheet, you'll see that there's $4.2 million in major capital projects that are encumbered, meaning either purchase order has been let or contracts have been let. That is the total. And then the balance just below that, in accordance with county fiscal policy, we have 3 different reserves. We have a reserve for contingency, we have a separate reserve for capital outlay, and then we have a kind of a working capital reserve for cash flow, in recognition of the fact that our fiscal year begins on October the 1st, but I seldom get my first distribution of new money until the week of Thanksgiving. So we have to operate for about 7 weeks with cash on hand before we get our first distribution from the tax collector. Tax bills don't go out until November the 1st. Just quickly on the income statement, on the next page, I thought it was a little surprising to me during the month of May, there was actually $34,600 in non-ad valorem assessments that were paid. And typically what that means to me is that not only were those assessments delinquent, they went to a tax certificate sale. And so I just kind of a little red flag. Somebody in Pelican Bay didn't pay their taxes, and they appear to have been sold at a public auction, and the proceeds from the auction, and maybe they were paid, delinquent with fees or with penalties and late charges prior to being sold at the auction. But $34,000 is interesting. It may have represented, a commercial property or something, I don't know, but I just thought that was a little unusual. Total operating expenses year-to-date are also shown there, $3,469,000. We're within budget. Total year-to-date revenues are at almost 95.5% of original forecast. The difference there representing discounts that people took for paying early in November, December, in order to get the discounts that would have applied here. Separately, on the next thing, the only other thing I wanted to allude to, about 3 pages in, our capital improvement income statement. You can see pretty aggressive spending for both the operations building and also the sidewalk phase 2 project. Combined in the course of May, we spent right at $400,000 on capital improvements as we begin to wind both of those 2 items down to completion. And so that's kind of the overview, and with that, I'll stop and see if there are any other questions. Otherwise, you can entertain a motion to accept. Motion to accept?
Do we do that? Yeah. Do we have a motion to accept? Second? Second. Any comments from the board? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Neil, and Chad. Item 8 is a Zoom meeting item. We were asked by email to entertain the thought of Zooming our meetings, and the staff has contacted the county attorney to get his and their opinion, what that would mean, how it would operate, what would be the steps to follow. And it's in your packet, but I think the chairman wanted me to read it item by item so that we would have, so the board and the audience would have just a hearing of what the county attorney opined. He opined that Zoom meetings are not legally required. The county attorney would prefer Zoom meetings be conducted at the BCC chambers and not here at Pelican Bay. A majority approval by the vote of this board would have to move the request forward to ask the BCC and county manager for their approval. All of that would still need Mr. Durrell's approval, should it get to that, get that far. Zoom meetings, if a Zoom meeting were conducted in Pelican Bay, PBSD employees would have to manage it and not Pelican Bay Foundation employees. It would take 3 PBSD employees and they would have to be trained to do it. No other advisory committee except the TDC has offered Zoom meetings as a point of reference. The Zoom meetings would have to be made available to the general public since we are a county arm. Just as we expect in our meetings, 3 minutes would be the amount of time for people to speak. So there is quite a few little hoops to go through to entertain this request. And right now, at this point, I didn't know if the chairman was going to do that, but he wanted you all to know what is involved. Any comment from the board members concerning item 8?
I just had a question.
Yeah.
Since they are public meetings, anybody can come in and record them, correct? So could a foundation, employee come and provide that service just through the foundation as a attendee to the public meeting?
Our meetings are filmed and are available on our website. So-
After the meeting, but they are able to be actually participated in, except for the gentleman of the speaker there.
Yeah,
Right,
I
he's-
don't, I
he's
don't
not
know
a
if
resident.
that would be possible, but, we'll take our marching orders from the attorney's office, and you can make a note of that, and
Yeah, I just was
we can
curious.
look into it.
That would be something we probably be able to do since we're such a large community.
It would have to be a county-generated Zoom.
Yeah, no, I understood your point about that. I'm just curious if it could be here too, like they do it on their own. That's my question, like we do other meetings. We Zoom our board meetings.
Maybe we should have staff, and then we can go.
So the contrary to what we've heard from the attorneys, because that would be a facility that was not made available to the general public, but rather to the foundation. And that's true.
Any other comments?
This was not an action item,
No.
but the chairman asked me to speak to the county manager's office, and I spoke directly to the county manager. They are opposed to Zoom meetings for logistical and public record reasons. If you have a virtual Zoom meeting, you're creating not only a digital record of the proceeding, the video of that, but even instant messages that are text messages that would come in through the Zoom process. Those all become public records, and retaining and the responsibility for that is one of the things that they are opposed to. There are no current advisory boards in the county that Zoom meetings, but I reminded the county manager on 2 different occasions. We, Pelican Bay Services, took our meetings on the road to the county commission chambers, and we broadcast that through the public access television network that they control. I think one had to do with the final review and adoption of the Clam Bay Management Plan. And on one other occasion, Mr. DeMooney hosted a joint meeting of the Services Division and the Foundation. And it was kind of a strategic planning meeting of both boards. And my recollection is that we also were able to do that. So the way I left it with the manager was that if we had a topic or a meeting that was important enough to the community to want to solicit virtual participation, that we would reserve the right to ask to use the board chambers. There are a couple of other entities, the Planning Commission, to my knowledge, the Tourist Development Council, perhaps the Coastal Advisory Commission, that also use the board chambers, and so there might be some scheduling issues. But she was perfectly satisfied at leaving it at that if we had a topic-specific need that was important enough to solicit a broader base, that we could take the show on the road and use the board chambers for that purpose.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. That does, and it explains a little bit further, really, the reason for this list. Yes, Beth?
Hi, Joe. May I make a comment? My name is Beth Schultz, and I'm...
Not sure the mic's on, Ed.
Always forget to hit the button. My name is Beth Schultz, and I'm with the Pelican Bay Property Owners Association. And the reason why the Zoom is on and included is because we've had several members reach out to us, and I asked Chairman Fogg if he would consider this, and that's what prompted this whole discussion. For lack of a better phrase, this just sounds like a lot of rules and too many rules to bring it forth. And I appreciate, we can give an answer back to our members who've inquired, because the beach discussion has become a huge topic, and people don't understand what's going on, and they want to start attending. And we've sent our monthly e-blasts out for this meeting, trying to educate people a little bit more and encourage them to attend. One suggestion, I'm just thinking, perhaps is there an easier way to get meeting minutes out of this meeting instead of Zoom? Maybe include them in the foundation meeting minutes on the website, or we can download them and send them out, but it's not that easy for members to figure out how to get on the county website, how to get the meeting minutes. Is there another option like that to keep them informed without a Zoom? I'm just thinking.
Are they part of the website?
They're on the county website, but I'm wondering, can they be included on the foundation's website? And maybe that's an easy way
Yeah,
for
you
them to
gotta
access
remember,
it.
this is a county advisory board, and there is separation. They are public record. People will have the opportunity to transcribe a public record, I would assume. But I think to answer your membership, you're correct that there seem to be a lot of hoops. And, you know, unless there is a specific item that would really necessitate allowing more people to be part of deliberations, we probably wouldn't go forward with a Zoom.
No, and I don't blame you. I'm just suggesting maybe meeting minutes be more accessible, you know, for people to be able to read easily rather than go to a different website. It's just a
Yeah.
suggestion or thought. Maybe.
If there's
Thank
an
you.
opportunity to develop a link on the foundation's website that would then take you to our minutes and records portal, I'm certainly not opposed to that. We can explore that with Tony and his staff.
Because we do have a list of previous.
I just
meeting.
wonder, there's a distinction obviously between Zoom and live streaming. If a third party like PBOA or the foundation were in the back of the room live streaming us, I guess if we have no objection, it's not part of our activity, and therefore it could go to whomever, whenever.
Yeah, just can't either be directly or indirectly. We can't hire a third-party vendor to do that thing, again, for
No,
purposes.
I'm not suggesting we hire anybody, I'm just saying
No, no, no.
that if
No, in
the
fact, there's
foundation wanted to set up a camera adjacent to the official camera and live stream that,
They're entitled to do that.
They
In
can
fact,
do-
there's case law that supports that.
Yeah, because we're, you know, publicly published meeting, and it is for the public, and nothing can be hidden. No, there was, no, I'm just, this was like an informational item and trying to answer the property owner's inquiry. Item 9 is committee reports, and we have one from Greg Stone, Chairman of the Landscape and Safety Committee.
Thanks, Joe. And I had the privilege of chairing my first of these meetings last week, and assuming the role from you. And as I did at that meeting, I'd like to acknowledge the years of leadership that you provided in landscape and safety leading up to this. So again, our gratitude. There are a couple of significant things. Firstly, we started with a presentation by Dave Greenfield on how the landscaping overall is managed and what his cycle is. We then went into specifically tree planting and replacement, and we agreed that going forwards, there are areas where we can place more trees that have either been lost or were removed as a result of the sidewalk project. So within the budget, we would target of the order of 50 additional trees per year to make up that gap. Plus, obviously, there's always the need to replace those that succumb for other reasons, and hopefully we don't sustain too much damage. But as Neil indicated, hopefully the hurricane season won't do us too much harm this year. During that discussion, the new chair of the design review committee for the foundation was there, and there was interest in pursuing a further discussion between our committee and the design review committee on landscaping in general. So we undertook to set that meeting up which we're targeting for the third or so week of July. And I think the first part of that will be just to, excuse the pun, understand the landscape that each of us works within, because there are definite jurisdiction issues for all of us to line up with. So I thought that was a positive step. We then talked on the safety side about the e-bike ordinance, which I assume members of this committee are aware that the county recently passed an incremental or a modified ordinance related to the use of e-bikes on roads and on sidewalks. And if you look at the Pelican Bay newsletter and other sources, there's information on that. I won't take you through that, but I think it's important for people to understand that. The road markings for bicycles that are currently on the roadway, as we've said before, are not compliant. So we've started a project to replace those progressively, and that we hope to know the timing on that a little more next week. But our intention clearly is to bring those up to current code. There was then a follow-up discussion on pedestrian flashing light installation at the two locations at North Point and Hammock Oak, where they intersect with Pelican Bay Boulevard, because they were examined for stop signs but were not deemed eligible to have stop signs. So the fallback position to try to improve safety in that area for pedestrians is putting in the flashing lights. So we agreed to proceed with just engineering design for that. We don't have any approval to finally proceed with that, but we're going to do the underlying engineering work and bring that back to the committee. The other thing that got a fair bit of discussion was we had Johnson Engineering, our contractor, represent their findings on options to repair the crosswalks that go across the various roadways here. We have 26 of them that are paved, and we've had ongoing maintenance and safety problems with those pavers deteriorating and causing gaps and holes, and at least in one case someone was injured. There are clearly multiple options for that, including repaving or finding a concrete type solution, or the county's preferred solution is going back to just black asphalt. Based on the discussion, it seemed like the community was more interested in or would prefer to keep some sort of paver appearance. So we've given our contractor a month to come back with options for strengthened pavers that could be used that we could trial. So that hasn't been resolved yet, and if there aren't options like that, then we may have to consider one of the other two that were discussed. Excuse me, it was also mentioned that a project will be undertaken to update all of the road signage to bring it up to current code, and that will take probably a year or so, if I remember correctly. 5 years. Oh, okay. Lots of signs. And other than that, I think the meeting went very positively, and we've made a couple of steps forward. Anyone have any questions or comments?
I have a question. If we have a joint meeting between the Landscape and Safety Subcommittee of PBSD and the
DRC?
DRC, how do we set that up?
Well, the proposal is that Mr. Burrell and I will be our representatives, and we're going to reach out to Brian Stevens, and I think you mentioned Lisa Warren as the two representatives for them. That would be the appropriate starting point.
Do we have to set that up as a PBSD meeting with public notifications?
Not if it's just Neil and myself, I believe. That's the case. If we had more than just Neil and myself, we would.
Thank you.
I couldn't hear your response, sorry. So,
You're on red.
I couldn't hear your response about the meeting. Did you say that it is a public meeting with
No,
PBSD?
no. If Neil and I just meet with him in an initial meeting, then that won't be public.
So you'll be meeting with Lisa?
Beg your pardon?
You'll be meeting with Lisa?
Mr. Stevens and Lisa, I guess it'll be up to Mr. Stevens to who he wants to bring along, but Neil and I will be our representatives at the initial part, and I see it as pretty exploratory at this stage.
Any other comments from the board? Thank you, Greg. It was a great meeting, and the committee's in good hands. Item 10, obviously, I can't get into our chairman's mind, but this is the information of his report. The proposed ordinance 2025-1427 about proposing a committee to deal with water quality in Clam Bay, and more specifically in the Seagate area, which is part of the city. That proposal has been postponed by the BCC till July 8th. In your packet, so that you can learn some information directly from participants, are our chairman's letter to the BCC, an email thread with Amy Patterson, the county manager, and Tony DeRico's letter to the BCC, and he is president of the foundation. If you read those, you'll get a sense of where those particular people are coming from and what the issues are. I think at our last meeting, Michael Rodberg, who's chairman of the Clam Bay Committee, gave some very salient information that's really critical to this whole issue. And as you look into those letters, they're highlighted concerning the pollution or water quality problems that the people at Seagate are experiencing or wanting to correct. But it's an issue that is proceeding, but it's being postponed at this point, as far as I know. Neil, is there any other public information?
No, I mean, for whatever reason, there was an attempt yesterday to move this off the consent agenda with that notice that it be postponed onto the regular agenda with no prior notice. And so they actually pulled it off the consent agenda yesterday, put it on the regular agenda, but my understanding was reach no conclusions. So Commissioner McDaniel, who has sort of sponsored this, was persistent enough to have a discussion of this on the regular agenda yesterday. But presumably no one was there because they had otherwise been led to believe that it would, be reconsidered at a future date. So if we hear anything further from the commissioner, additionally, your commissioner has been somewhat concerned about this. The first time they attempted to put it on the agenda, he was out of town that day on county business, and he knew that they knew that he, the district commissioner, was not going to be there that day, but there was an effort to have the agenda considered. It is a two-part process. If this were to move forward, an ordinance of this nature can only be considered and adopted in an advertised public hearing, the same way we adopt your budget every year. And so you have to run a legal notice in the newspaper, you have to run the same notice on the website, that there's going to be the consideration at an advertised public hearing of this ordinance. And so if this were to get any legs under it in the July deliberations, then the final action would still be based on a subsequent public hearing. And so in this particular case, I can just tell you, your commissioner was sort of aggrieved as a result of the way that this had not been shared with he or the other board members as a draft in advance, and was put on the portion of the agenda that would have been considered without any input at all, and just a little clumsy in that regard, to use the commissioner's words. And so we'll just wait and share with you anything that happens in furtherance of that.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for your explanation and clarification. That makes sense what's happening. Any board member have any comments?
Yeah, thank you. Do you have a sense of how our Commissioner Chris sees this?
I think he would be opposed.
Good.
I kind of left the county commission meeting earlier before this came up, but Chad, did I understand the commission all said on the record that he was against the proposed ordinance?
Right.
Any other comments on this particular item? Then that's the only chairman report that I have. Now, under old business, item 11, we're going to recognize Rick Swider, who is our representative on the Foundation's Resiliency Committee. And Rick, you have the floor to give us a report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do sit on this resiliency committee, and I do sit as a representative of PBSD. Chad also sits on this committee. So I just want to report on how I see this resiliency committee as it relates to PBSD. And fundamentally, the work of the committee is important and will bring positive results for all of our community. At the same time, I'm confident that the work of the Resilience Committee and PBSD will generate a little bit of friction. As you recall, when our board was informed of the Pelican Bay Foundation's master plan as it relates to landscaping, a clear demarcation of the Foundation's business and PBSD's business is not always so clear. The Resiliency Committee has developed a draft plan for the Pelican Bay Coastal Storm Management Plan. And from my perspective, this seems like a strong start for developing a coordinated working plan for the entire community. This document calls for the establishment of 6 separate working groups, 4 of which are going to dovetail with different committees of the PBSD. So one of those would be the beach working group, which obviously would intersect with the PBSD Clam Bay Committee. We'll probably have a separate, the Resilience Committee would have a separate working group for the Clam Bay Management, the Clam Bay Mangrove Forest. That obviously would also dovetail with PBSD Clam Bay Committee. There will be a Burn and Pelican Bay Hydrology Committee, which would intersect with the PBSD Water Management Committee. There will be a 4th committee called the Financial Risk Management Committee, which would in some ways intersect with PBSD Finance and Budget Committee. So certainly these subcommittees will have some overlapping concerns. At the same time, the Resiliency Committee will be looking at these issues from a lens that's a little more focused on the efforts of storm damage as opposed to our focus that has historically been more focused on sustainability. As an example of how these conflicts are going to arise, during a discussion we had yesterday during the Clam Bay and the mangroves, I suggested that PBSD's annual report titled Clam Bay Monitoring and Management Report, that report was extremely detailed and that we did indeed have a strong grasp on the health of the system, the Clam Bay and the mangroves. And at the same time, there was a pretty quick retort that said, or that I was told, that our report, that the data presented in our report was in a format that was not particularly useful. So that was certainly kind of a wow event for me, and I think this project that we have completed has been enormously useful, and also it's been expensive to put together these reports we've done annually for a good period of time. So I think our two groups, both the Resiliency Committee and PBSD, we can continue on two separate paths or try to find some common efficiencies. Finding common ground may not be simple, but it certainly would be wise if somehow we can generate some more overlap, some more efficiencies between what PBSD has been doing for an awful long time and the Resiliency Committee. But it's just not going to be a walk in the park, I don't think.
Rick, is there a stated goal to this committee? Is there an endpoint that's trying to be reached? It seems very complicated setup to arrive at a conclusion.
I think Tony and company have put together a fabulous starting point, and it is an incredibly complex task. But what could be more important right now than getting this done? So it has to be done, but there's a lot of it, like the HOAs need to get on the same page, or it would be ideal if all the HOAs could get on the same page. If PBSD could get on the same page with the foundation, it'd be wonderful.
Are they employing any experts, technical experts in the field?
Most definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be, so Mr. Chairman, I think that's where there's going to be some issues. So we employ different experts with Clam Bay, certainly between Earth Tech and Thomas Moore, yeah. And so our reports are generated to do one set of things, and the Resilience Committee has maybe a more immediate need to look at some things differently. I don't know how the data that we've collected over 20-some years is going to be presented in a format that's going to be more useful, but I'm probably just not wise to what might be available. So hopefully there's some calming going on out here.
Well, Rick, thank you for the report. We do have a Clam Bay committee meeting scheduled for Monday the 16th. And I've asked staff to put on the agenda kind of some think out of the box discussion of how we do manage and restore the beaches and the berm system. Because as you pointed out, our focus has been largely to maintain the beaches and the berm and the general ecology in the condition in which we found it for ourselves and our future generation. But with changing climate situations and the storms we've encountered in recent years, the reasonable question is, do we have to rethink this approach that has been successful for very many years and perhaps do more or do different? So I would invite anyone interested, and especially those who wish to be active on the foundations committees, to come to our meeting, share their thoughts as we will be sharing our thoughts on what should we be looking at and what has database, factual basis, and precedent in other locations that we should be looking at.
Michael, just a quick follow-up to what you just said. One of the premises of the document that was put together was that in studying the mangroves, perhaps, community-wide, if maybe we should be getting collectively, the homeowners association, single-family homes, community, should be able to drive bigger discounts on liability insurance for storms that would be different from properties north of us or south of us. And that'd be a wonderful thing if that could happen. And so, like, we spend money on these handout channels. Well, if we spent 3 times as much money with Earth Tech, would that generate a more resilient mangroves? And so, who should pick up the cost of that? And in the end, it's all the same checkbook, but it's coming from 2 different sources. So.
Any other comments for Rick from the board? Thank you. We appreciate your efforts on the community's behalf and certainly us.
Yeah. We'll see.
Item 12 is a new business / miscellaneous correspondence. Do we have any new business by the board to bring forward? Do I hear a motion for item 13 then? Excellent, Greg. Second?
Second.
Okay. And everybody agreed.